Hi folks, I'm Gary Dunshoe with Big Bend Saddlery, and this month's Tack Tip I want to talk a little bit about buying a new saddle. We just had a customer call in, and they live up the country somewhere, and they're wanting to buy a Wade. They think they've ridden a Swell fork all their life, but now they're wanting to buy a Wade, and they said they can't find one to ride. So what do? They don't know if they like it or don't like it, but they think they would. So we're just going to give you some pointers here on how to go about that. If you're going from a swell fork to a slick fork, or slick fork to a swell fork, and maybe a little advice on what to do about that. Some of the things that are going to change up a lot when you go from one to the other are things like your gullet height. On the slick forks, a lot of them, the gullet height is only 7.5 inches high, so they're going to sit a lot lower down to your horse. You're not going to have as much swells in front of you, of course, because they're pushed down lower and because they're slick to start with. But that changes the position of where your horn is as well. On the higher gulleted swell forks, the horn sets up higher. So that's one of the things you need to look out for. The other thing is the ground seat. The ground seat on the Wades kind of blends right into the swells, and they're quite a bit different, as generally speaking, than on a swell fork. And they could change the way you sit, which could change the length of seat that you need, just change the way you ride completely. Some of the other things that could change up going from one to another are the way the stirrups hang. You can tell on this one that the hang is fairly straight, and on that saddle the stirrup leathers hang a little bit farther forward. That's going to make you sit a little different and could change the seat length on you. So just because you ride a certain seat length in a swell fork doesn't mean you're going to ride the same seat length in a slick fork, and vice versa. Your swell width, this applies whether you're going from a swell fork to a slick fork or from one style of swell fork to another one. But how wide they are, and if they bend back a little bit, or if they have an undercut, all those are things that make a lot of difference whenever you're going from one to another. My best advice on doing those things, on looking for a change, would be, first off, find one that you can just borrow or ride in. Evidently you've seen one somewhere. Even if it belongs to a stranger, just ask them if you could ride it for just a minute or two, or just sit in it. If you just absolutely can't find one to borrow or sit in or use for a day or two, I don't think I'd buy a new one. I wouldn't order a new one, not knowing if you're going to like it or not. But the second best thing would be find a well-made used one and buy that. And then if you ride it a while and say, man, I just can't do this, well, then you can get your money back. You can almost always get what you have in a used saddle back, and then you're not out a bunch on buying a new saddle and trying to sell it as a used saddle. But anyway, the best bet is to ride one and ride it, as much as you can, and be sure that you want to switch, because that's a pretty dramatic switch when you go from swell fork to slick fork or vice versa, and there's some things in there that might have changed that you might not be aware of. Hope this helps with making your mind up if you're going to do something like that. If we can help you with anything else related to saddles or tack, give us a call. Thanks for watching.